The world is a much bigger place than all that. Hello everyone, I'm Father Aaron, the Dungeon Minister! And today we're going to look away from the Heroes of Honeywood and see what else is happening in the world. Specifically, what else is happening in other campaigns that I run in the same setting. So, in addition to the family game, I also run an in-person game that started at our friendly local game store, the Hooded Goblin. Awesome place. It started there, but has since migrated, and now we play here at the church. I run that campaign, and I also run an online game for patrons. Check out my Patreon. Patrons can sign up to be part of the game, and I run that as well, and both of those are played in the same world as the Heroes of Honeywood. It's the same universe, the same series of events, and they stay roughly contemporary with one another. They run roughly at the same time. Obviously, the monthly game gets a bit behind, but I have to say recently, because of a number of things, Fleetwood is taking swim instructor lessons. He's learning to be a swim instructor and lifeguard. Plus, he went to high school this past year. He's going back in September. So it got harder to schedule games suddenly. It wasn't just all the kids home all the time. Let's have a game. So they're not as far ahead as they used to be, right? But I have these three different things which happen in the same universe. Not to mention, when Clericon rolls around, I run a game at Clericon that is held in the same universe. Okay, so really what it amounts to is I'm lazy. I don't want to come up with new worlds, and I'm so lazy I don't want to read someone else's setting. I don't want to go, researching Mystara, researching Forbidden Realms, researching anything else. I don't want to read someone else's. That's just a lot of work. I'd rather just run it in the system that I'm, the setting that I'm used to. Okay, so some years back, I decided to start running a game at our local game shop. And approaching that, I figured it would be very much a drop-in, drop-out kind of scenario. It's running in public at the game store. Someone might say, oh, can I play? Sure, let's give you a character, roll up a character, let's go. Because BECMI characters take like 5 minutes to roll, right? Let's go. And the person would try it maybe a 1 week, 2 weeks, and they're like, yeah, not for me. I prefer 5e, or I prefer Dolmen Wood, or I prefer Cthulhu, or whatever. And so they'd be off. I figured it would be much more permeable, and so what I did is I started with a mega dungeon, all right? Mega dungeon. I figured that would be the kind of thing, it really didn't matter if people came and went. There wasn't a real story. There wasn't a through line. This was gonzo dungeon making. And I did it in 2023 when the Dungeon 23 thing was a big deal. If you don't know what that was, it was the idea that every day of the year you would make one room of a dungeon. So you'd end up with a dungeon that was 365 rooms. And each month then would be a level. So, all of January, then February, etc. You know what the months are. So that was the idea, and I thought, well, I've got this huge dungeon I'm working on, because it was in the summer when we started. So it was already 6 levels deep. They're never going to get through it. They're never going to finish it. So, well, let's use that. Now, our initial group consisted at first of 3 guys, and they played, we had a thief, and I can't remember the thief's name, and you'll find out why, and a wizard, a magic user named Borum, and a cleric named Heston, okay? And the night that we first gathered, a young woman saw us and did just what I figured would happen. Hey, can I play? Sure. And she joined, I don't remember her name either, her character's name. She was a dwarf. Okay, great. We had a group of 4. Very quickly, it became apparent that the thief and the dwarf were used to playing 5e. And this is nothing to slag 5e. It's its own game, though. It's not it's not really a logical extension of the old school D&D. I mean, some of it is the same, but it is so different in tone and in mechanics that, well, the thief got himself killed regularly. Like, a lot. And he kept rolling up new thieves because he liked the class and kept getting them killed. And the thieves in BECMI are notoriously weak. They got a 1d4 for their hit dice, and they can't wear anything above leather armor, so they're easy to hit. And I mean, they do have a dex bonus, which helps their AC, but still, because you have to have dexterity for a thief character. Still, once you hit them, they're pretty well dead. And they're the ones who are supposed to suss out the traps, right? So if they go to remove a trap, and as I've said elsewhere, BECMI thieves have a real hard time accomplishing trap removal. If they go to remove a trap and it backfires, it hits them, and then they have to make a saving throw, and if they don't make it, they're dead, and the saving throws aren't that great. So he kept losing his thief. Eventually, he learned how to play it, but he was really more of a Magic the Gathering player. I'm doing this because it involves cards, I think. And so was the dwarf, really. She wanted to play Magic, and a Magic game started up the same night that we were... I keep doing this. Anyway, a Magic game. But around the same time, a couple of new players joined. At one point, I think we had 6 or 7 players around the table. But that was the sort of dip and fall of people saying, "Oh, can I join?" And I figured that would happen. Anyway, we continued in this for a while. But it became apparent after we'd taken on a couple of new characters. And it started out as a fighter and an elf. Okay, and the elf's name was Oregano. I'm not sure why. Anyway, it started out with those two. Actually, it might not have even been Oregano. It was 2 thieves. No. At one point it was a fighter and an elf, then it was 2 thieves. And I say at one point because these players also were steeped in 5e. And the thing that's really different about 5e from BECMI, or any old school game, is the fragility factor. Low-level characters get killed easily, right? That's not really true in 5e. 5e characters can die. It takes a lot more to kill them, though. And you get a lot more warning in 5e. Like, okay, now you're making death saving throws. Oh, now I'm in trouble, right? Whereas if you're playing a thief, even if you're playing a fighter in BECMI, even if you have an 18 constitution giving you 3 extra hit points, the max you can have is 11, right? 2 hits can take you out. 2 hits with a normal sword can take you out. 2 hits with a short sword, if they roll well, can take you out. So these players kept losing characters. And they did it by, walking into a dark room full of scary sounds alone. Like, it was the most iconic moment for me was this room. It was full of giant beetles. And so I'm telegraphing. You hear a skittering, scuttling sound in the dark, like scraping and rasping and clicking, right? I'm trying to say, enormous insects, don't go in here alone, right? And he goes, okay, you're beetle food now. You're beetle food. God bless his friend. They joined together. They're friends, and they joined together, so in she charges to try to help him, to save him, and, it's just... God bless them. They've now figured the system out, though. They've got, okay, this is really deadly. All right, we need to adjust. And they have beautifully. They're now playing it quite well. So what happened is the group sort of coalesced. And at the same time, there were things happening at the store that made it, difficult to play there. Nothing to the store's fault at all. It's just circumstances. So we decided to move it to the parish. So, of course, once we move it to the parish, the group closes, right? We're not out in public. People don't see it being played. Can I join? We're not advertising it on the store's Discord server because I feel weird organizing games. Hey, come play somewhere else, right? Using their Discord. Anyway, it's become a closed game. And as a closed game, these folks, they want a story. They want to start to craft something. When it's in the game shop and it's open and people come and go, fine. It doesn't need a story. It doesn't need And by story, I don't mean something I tell them. I mean something that we tell together. That's always the story in D&D, right? It's something that we tell together. So I started to bend it into more of an actual campaign, not just a gonzo kind of thing. And I'll talk about the online one at another date. I'm going to focus on this. I still call it the Game Shop game, the Hooded Goblin game, even though we don't play the Hooded Goblin anymore. So this group, originally actually 5, because Fleetwood played in it for a little while, began in a little town called Skirling. And it is to the west of, well, it's to the west of the main, let me start over. The setting that I use is a kingdom of my creation called Strathunwyn, Valley of the Bear, and it is a large north to south running valley. And by valley, I don't mean something that's, like that. It's huge and wide. It's a vast valley, but there's mountain chains on either side that hem it in. Now, the north of this kingdom is where the Honeywood campaign largely happens. Honeywood being the furthest north human settlement in the kingdom, and it is under the control of Kilmarnock, which is a county in the North Reach, the Marches, on the northern end of the valley. South of that, the barony of Comoic, a very powerful barony. Even though a count is a higher rank, he's a count because he's on the Marches, he's on the borders. The Baron is actually far more powerful, more wealthy. He has a great deal of cropland, well-watered. He's quite wealthy and powerful. South of that, then, you come to an area where the valleys, the mountain ranges on each side have a bunch of side valleys shooting off, and these form small kingdoms. Things start to chop up a bit. There's a thaindom left over from historic time before the kingdom of Strathunwyn was established and the land was governed by thanes. This is taking from sort of a Scottish, English. Yeah. And then to the south of that, more baronies, etc. And these little side valleys would be very small little fiefdoms, etc. At that hinge point between Comoic and where things begin to break into all these different things, there is the free city of Belesior. Belesior is simply Scottish Gaelic. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Scottish Gaelic for free city. And it is a city that does not exist under any territorial lord, no baron, no count, no anything. It is its own thing. Think London, right? But not the capital. It's not the capital of the kingdom. It's just London-like in having the freedom of its own city. To the west of that, in one of those little side valleys, is the village of Skirling. And our heroes start from that village. That's where the mega dungeon was. And as they began to branch out, one of the first adventures, as we reformed the campaign to be less mega dungeon. One of the first adventures was to explore a nearby tomb, the tomb of a saint, right? Saint Necton. Now, Saint Necton has a lot of interesting history behind it. It's a real saint. I took actual obscure Celtic saints, mostly Celtic, for my saints in world. They go to the tomb of Saint Necton, and approaching the tomb comes a wagon and some soldiers. The soldiers approach, and they can tell these are not human soldiers. They're goblins, right? I think it's goblins. Or were they orcs? This was like over a year ago. Okay, so the memory not so good. At any rate, the party begins to prepare for their arrival. What are we going to do? This group approaches. There's a fight. It's pretty intense, but it does wrap up in the party's favor. They defeat this encroaching group, and they discover it is led by a magic user who has a staff, a magical staff. He won't tell them what it is, but they can tell with a detect magic spell that it is magic, and powerfully magic. All right. What are we going to do with this? None of them can identify it. I don't let them just, identify things willy-nilly. In fact, one of them has a magic item that he still doesn't know the exact properties of. Kind of fun. Anyway, they have this staff. And what are we going to do with it? Let's take it to a major city. We need to go someplace where there would be a magic user capable of identifying it. Let's go to Belisior. In they go, and the first thing they do, we'll take this staff and have it identified. And there is the spellcaster's tower. And it's a tower that's actually divided down the middle, internally divided down the middle, between clerics and magic users. And so each group has its own libraries and laboratories in which to make magic items, etc. So it's a sort of center of learning for both kinds of spellcasters, right? And so it has a religious component and an arcane component. Well, they go in to identify this thing, and it turns out it is a staff of necromancy. This magical item can raise large numbers of the undead. That's what this magic user was going to do, to raise the dead, because at St. Nectan's tomb, there was a cemetery around it. People wanting to be buried near the saint, right? What was he up to with this? Well, what he was up to was raising the dead for Bargle's army. This was one of Bargle's students, one of his disciples, come to use this thing to bring more troops to Bargle in his ongoing wars and his ongoing, attempt to control this. He didn't control the Veil of the Blade yet when that happened. Anyway, they don't know this. They just know it's a staff of necromancy. What are we going to do with it? Well, the cleric, a very lawful fellow, wants to destroy it. It should be destroyed. How do we destroy it? You're going to have to take it to a powerful cleric, to be destroyed. Great. Who's the most powerful cleric in town? Well, it's the bishop. There's a cathedral here. Let's take it to the bishop. They take it to the bishop. She thanks them. She is not a good person. I decide the bishop is going to be a villain. Partly because the dwarf, I'm not sure why. The dwarf decides to cop attitude with her and be rude and demanding a reward and all this. I think they kick him out of the cathedral at one point. I think he gets kicked out of the cathedral. Anyway, it was a while ago. They give this staff of necromancy to this bishop to destroy. She then gives them a quest. She says, well, you seem likely people. I need a job done. The job is to retrieve a staff top, like the head of a staff. It doesn't have a staff with it at the time. It's in the shape of a lion. She wants them to recover this staff head, which is in a sunken monastery to the north. There's a large lake to the north. This is me reusing an adventure that I ran for the Dungeon Delvers Guac online convention a couple years ago. Anyway, so they're going to go and retrieve this staff. So they go and they fight through it. They do eventually retrieve the staff head and they bring it back to her. She gives them a reward. I think she cures someone. That's what it was. Someone had tomb rot or something. Again, it's been a while. So she heals someone of some serious disease in exchange for this quest. I think she heals them first and then they go, because sending them sick wouldn't be a good idea. Anyway, this was a long while ago. That's why I don't remember everything. They give her this staff head. Great. Okay. Let's explore the city while we're here. This was a year ago. They have been in that city, over a year ago. It was a year and a half, I think. They have been in that city ever since. They've not left the city, not for large periods of time. They go out, and do adventures and come back. This is now their city. So one thing that happened is, into what had been a relatively traditional dungeon crawling wilderness adventure kind of campaign, the Honeywood group, into that comes this urban campaign, right? I mean, the Heroes of Honeywood have had urban adventures up in Kilmarnock. They've had adventures in the city, but now this is almost entirely in the city, which is a different frame, right? You're not in a dungeon, you're in streets, right? You're not sneaking into caves, you're trying to get in through the window kind of thing. So it's a different vibe. And there's people everywhere, right? You can't just randomly shoot off fireballs. There's innocent civilians. So it's a totally different campaign. What I decide to have engaged in this, so here's this group of adventurers, clearly tough folks, and the dwarf has this habit of making a scene of himself everywhere he goes. So they decide they're going to, I decide that a local thieves guild notices them. I should mention at this point, the original elf, Oregano, died somewhere and has been replaced by Basil. She's sticking with the herbs. And Fleetwood, who'd been playing as as the elf Catnip, he left because he wanted to do our parish D&D group, and we essentially said, look, you can't be out playing D&D every night. I can, but you can't. Anyway, so we're down to the 4. Okay, so we got the cleric, the magic user, so Heston, Borum. We have Tilligrin, the dwarf, and Basil, the elf. Their presence raises the attention of the local thieves guild, or one of the local thieves guilds. And they see someone kind of keeping an eye on them, and the dwarf goes over and demands to know who they are and what they think they're doing, and gets himself... Oh. The cleric takes a softer approach and speaks to the individual, this man who's watching them, and is given a copper leaf. A little leaf pin. Okay. What's this for? It's for entry, he's told. We'll be watching. We'll contact you. And he vanishes. The dwarf chases him for a while, but he vanishes. There's secret doors and passages down alleys, things like that. Okay. It starts to become a campaign about intrigue. Well, eventually they find out who this leaf leads to. It leads to a thieves guild, and it was the Sylvan Guild, I think it was. So it's sort of a forest theme. And it is headed by a woman who calls herself the Wren, right? Bird theme there. There's sort of a nature theme runs through this thieves guild. They haven't explored it too much, although there's a running joke. The wizard keeps teasing the cleric that the Wren is his girlfriend, right? Anyway. The Wren reveals that the bishop is evil, that the bishop is working with this usurper to the Vale of the Blade, Bargle, who's recently made moves or taken over. Again, I can't remember where in the history this lands. But she's no good. And they're like, oh, we gave her that really powerful necromancy staff and that staff head, which was also magic. What did we do? Right? We got to get the staff back from her. Well, don't worry about that just yet. There are other fish to fry. She is preparing for an invasion of the city. This thieves guild keeps their feelers out. They watch. They are the spies of the city. This city is run by the guilds. Okay, there's a mayor, but the mayor is largely a figurehead. The powerful guilds, the silversmiths guild, the glovers guild, the blacksmiths guild, all these guilds run the city, really. And some of them favor the bishop, and some favor the freedom of the city. Some want the city to come under the control of a lord, and they favor the position of the king. This gets into some very difficult politics, okay? The king in Strathunwyn is normally the monarch, really, not just king, it's a king at the moment. The monarch is chosen by a moot of all of the lords. When a king dies or is aging and steps down, or announces, or king or queen announces that he or she is going to step down, the moot gathers and chooses from their number a new king. It is often the child of the reigning monarch. It is usually the child of the reigning monarch, but not always. The king has proposed making it automatic, that the heir is always the heir. This raises the ire of the Count of Kilmarnock and a number of other barons, including the Baron of the Vale of the Blade, and is the cause of the strife. It's the cause of the Civil War. Really, a lot of the actual causes are the fact that Bargle wanted to take the Vale of the Blade. He wanted that position, so he ousts the Baron who had been there, the one who was allied with Kilmarnock. I told you, it's complicated. The point is, within the city there are divisions as well, and some of the guilds favor one side, some the other, right? The bishop is preparing an invasion of the city. The city has walls and a guard. At the center of the city, a river comes into the city, and an artificial channel, actually two rivers come in, and an artificial channel was made between the two forks as they come in to create an island in the center. And on that island, no weapons are allowed, right? And that is where most of the guilds, the powerful guilds who actually run things, that's where they have their guild halls, their headquarters. That's where all the prominent citizens live. So the bridges are well guarded and can be they can be torn down to make the island totally safe. What the bishop is doing is she has smuggled weapons into the cathedral, and somehow she's going to get troops in to take those weapons and then attack the city. What are we going to do? You have to go in. The weapons, incidentally, are magic. It's a whole whack of magic swords, okay? +1, +2, whatever. What are we going to do? We need someone to infiltrate the cathedral, right? And the bishop knows our guild, so our guild members really can't do it. We can watch, we can spy, but we can't get into the cathedral. We need someone else, and you've got a cleric. That's handy. We need someone to get into that cathedral and use this, a rod of cancellation. Now,